What if nothing changes in the quarterback room? Who's it benefit for the Auburn Tigers?
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy War Rapport Wednesday to all who celebrate. We are joined by Mike G of the War Rapport. You and I were talking after practice earlier this week, and you brought up a very interesting question. If nothing changes in the quarterback room, right? Because the growing assumption is more people will be added, and probably some people are going to leave, right? I think I would be shocked if all three were still in the roster: TJ Finley, Robby Ashford, and Holden Geriner. I think I'd be shocked if it went chalk and then just Hank Brown came in. I would be surprised by that. I think you would be too. If you're watching or listening, you probably would be as well. But if nothing changes, which that is an option, Mike G, and of course the roster does have to shed some dudes if they want to add more guys just based on scholarships of dudes coming in the summer. There's a lot that has to happen. But if the quarterback room stays the same, Mike G, it's an interesting conversation about who could potentially benefit from that. Because the upside is all Robby, but right now, as far as throwing the football, it looks like it's TJ.
Yeah, listen, TJ is he's a quarterback, man. He's been playing quarterback his whole life, and he can throw the ball. The issue with TJ has always been how practice translates to games. That's it. That's where we're at with TJ Finley.
Yeah.
I think that he's been a guy who generally does and says everything that the coaches want. Right. And we've heard him in interviews, Zach. He's great. I think he says all the right things. It's just, will it translate to W's on Saturday? That's where TJ Finley is at. For Robby, here's why I think that if nothing changes, Robby has the advantage. Right. Because he can run. And it's really just that simple. He's an athlete.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that it?
And when things break down, you've got a playmaker there who is pretty accurate throwing the ball at least down the field.
Sure.
And can make your run game dangerous. I think the running backs eat with Robby at quarterback a little bit more. If you got to play 11 on 11 and that read option becomes very dangerous with him and Jarquez Hunter. I think you've got more options on offense with Robby Ashford than you do with TJ Finley. And we still don't know how this, everybody's psyched about O-line, but we haven't seen it just yet. So, depending on how they protect, TJ Finley needs that protection. Robby Ashford can make things happen when things break down.
So what if I said to you, the offensive line is going to be better and the running game is going to be fine regardless of how mobile your quarterback is, because Jarquez Hunter, DeMario Austin, Battie coming in, Cobb coming in. I think the running back room is safe. I think we all agree on that. The question is how much space are they going to be given due to their teammates in front of them? And I think the O-line looks night and day better. I think this is the best offensive line I've seen at Auburn in a while. Everybody saying 2017.
Before you see them play.
They're passing the eye test. I don't know when the last time our O-lines passed the eye test. Probably 2017, right? And so I think that's a step in the right direction. I don't think they're going to be worse. They certainly could be. I don't think they will be, but they certainly could be. But what if it is better? And Hugh Freeze knows that, and they're going to be able to pass protect somewhat effectively. We've heard nothing but good things about Dillon Wade as a pass protector. Gunnar Britton, we've seen it as a left tackle in a pass-heavy offense in Western Kentucky. Moving to the right side, it should, in theory, be even a little bit easier. And then we'll see how the interior offensive line builds around those guys. But if it is better and the quarterback is given time, could you make the argument that it's better for the passing quarterback because you're going to be able to run the ball because you've got a stable of backs that are able to do it?
Sure. I think so. And it's probably even better that this is a new coaching staff, but I will add this caveat, right? In the scenario you just described, it's advantage TJ Finley. However, 3 out of the 5 interceptions that he threw, 3 or 4 out of the 5 interceptions that he threw, and the first few games of last season were unforced errors. They were bad throws or bad reads or call it what you want. Dude, like not a whole lot of pressure. I mean, there was one against Penn State, where you can argue clearly he was under pressure when he threw the pick. But there were some questionable ones there as well, too, when protection was good against lesser competition than that.
Yeah.
So, those aren't things that can just be ignored, Zach. Improvement has to happen year over year. It doesn't matter if it's Robby Ashford or TJ Finley or even the new kid Holden Garner or the young guy Holden Garner. They've got to improve every practice.
Right. Yeah. I think the decision making for all of them is going to be suspect. We don't know Holden because we haven't really seen it. Mm-hmm. And then Hank's a true freshman. We'll see what happens with him. I don't think anybody's expecting him to come in and compete for the job. Okay. Maybe, but we'll see.
Maybe.
But I think having Freeze, and this was the argument all along, right? Having Freeze's scheme is going to open guys up more. And probably the first read is going to work more than it did under Brian Harsin. Just a guess, we're assuming, but historically that's certainly been the case for Hugh Freeze quarterbacks in Hugh Freeze systems. And I just think when you take some of the decision-making out of it, I think that's a point in TJ's favor opposed to Robby.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, but I also think you're going to run two very different systems depending on who the quarterback is. You can't not use Robby Ashford's legs. I just think if you decide you're going with him, they're going to have to prepare contingencies for these quarterbacks because their skill sets are so different, Zach. Like, I don't know how you send Robby out there and ask him to do the same things that you would ask TJ to do or vice versa. Now, you want your quarterback to sit in the pocket some, but Robby Ashford's legs change the dynamic of this offense. And I just think in this day and age, when you have a dual threat quarterback, a true dual threat quarterback, you have to take advantage of that at a requisite amount of times to create mismatches, or you're doing yourself a disservice.
I like Robby's legs and ability to move when it's more improv than designed. And I think it's when he's more dangerous. I think that's when his deep ball accuracy, I think it's when it comes into play. And with that in mind, like, I think you can run a normal offense, and just when things break down, you say, okay, go do your thing, Robby, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't know. Sure, there's going to be some stuff that you call with TJ that you can't with Robby and vice versa. But I don't think the offense changes. I just think some of the calls may change. But I think you can go in there and ask Robby to do a 3-step drop, and it's not there. And all of a sudden, maybe he extends the play and does something cool. I think that's where Robby has the best upside. I don't think it's within scheme. I think it's outside of it when he has to improvise.
If we're talking about passing the ball. But if we're talking about read option,
I'm just talking about total impact on the football game.
Okay, yeah, I think that his total impact on the football game is more about the mismatch that he creates for defenses having to account for him with the football in his hands, no matter what. So whether it's a designed read option or if it's when the play breaks down, and where I'll disagree with you is I think that if the line is good, if we're assuming that the line is good for both quarterbacks,
let's assume the SEC it's the 6th best offensive line in the SEC,
middle of the pack. They think quarterbacks Robby Ashford. You know why? Is because they were middle of the pack when Bo Nix was quarterback in pass protection. They were middle of the pack. They were giving up a 28% pressure rate, when Bo was quarterback for most of the years that he was here, which was about 6th or 7th in the SEC. So, I think it's advantage Robby. And we saw what Bo could make happen with his legs when things broke down. He carried the offense. So, again, if you got to, but he had to do it under Brian Harsin and under some really bad offensive lines, in Gus's last few years. So if we're assuming that the line is better and the scheme is better, then I don't know, man. I like Robby here. But I can make a case for TJ as well too. It's my only thing with TJ is what we see in practice going to translate to Saturdays, and I do think that he benefits from a better pass protection. Yeah, no, there's a lot of concerns with both. I'm with you. I think if there's questions about the offense, you want the guy that's the dual threat quarterback. So I'm with you. I'm with you for the most part. Real quick, Zach, and because we were both out at practice, does Holden Garner fall out of this race? I had high hopes for him going into the spring, but he looks so far behind the other two. He looks far behind. Okay, so we agree on that. Yeah, like I
everything's like a yard short or it's like way outside. Like there's just not enough mustard on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw a lot of the dirt balls, high balls. I mean, he looked all over the place to me in what we saw.
I hate it for him. I'm genuinely crushed for him.
Yeah.
Because you know he saw all this stuff where like you guys said it, we said it, I'm sure other shows said it. It's like this can be Holden's spring. And he's just not taking, I don't know if it's a pressure thing. Charlie 5 yesterday mentioned, like, I wonder if there's something that he's battling with his shoulder. Like, his motion doesn't look broken at all. Like, it doesn't look like he's favoring a shoulder or anything like that. I don't know, but it's not working. It's not working so far. And there's a chance, outside of our window, he's doing better, right? There's a chance of it. I'm not being told that, but there's certainly a chance of it. We'll see.
I'm not hearing that either. So I think what we saw matches up with what I've been hearing. I was just waiting to see it. And again, I mean, we're only 4 practices in at this point, so there's still time to turn things around. But man, every practice that passes, that window gets shorter and shorter. Yeah,
no, and the gap between the top 2 and him has gotten wider every single time.
The top 2 who have significant time on the field, Zach,
right?
Which is another thing that kind of puts them behind.
No, that's right. That's right. Okay, there's an offensive lineman, Mike G. You and I were talking about before we clicked record. That may be kind of stealing the show. That's not a transfer. We discuss that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Mike G, you've talked about this before. You use FanDuel. Yeah. They have Auburn as a 0.5-point dog against Iowa tomorrow. 0.5 point. So it's a push. Let's just call it what it is. It's a push. And look, a lot of people, the fact it's in Birmingham, Iowa's a trendy team. I think Auburn can wear them down over the course of the game. We will certainly see, especially with what's going to feel like a home court advantage. We think. I like the Tigers plus 0.5 point. Where are you in this? What does your gut tell you, Mike G?
My gut tells me Allen Flanagan hits the game-winning shot at the buzzer for a riveting first-round win for the Auburn Tigers.
I love that.
To send them to Saturday.
Right? I love that. Let's get some redemption going for Al. Exactly. That'd be huge. Yeah. So you get in on the action. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. They also have a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 for new customers. So that's bonus bets if that first bet doesn't hit. Once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, the NFL, and the Locked On Podcast Network. Mike G. Tate Johnson was a guy going in the spring that I gave 0 shot. In fact, if you would have made me make a list of 10 guys that would be most likely to transfer after spring, I probably would have put Tate Johnson on there, Mike G. I'm like, I don't get it. And then we go out there for the first open window, and he's moved to left guard. And I'm like, he's just a placeholder till Jeremiah Wright gets healthy. And they're going to put Jeremiah right there. Cam Sutt's going to be the other guard. But what we saw earlier in the week is, okay, Jeremiah Wright's back. He's at left guard. And then Tate Johnson got moved to right guard, which tells me they just want him on the field. And then you brought this up, and I'll let you allude to it, but Hugh Freeze talking very highly about Tate Johnson. Good for him, man. Good for that kid.
Yeah, I just think that, well, amazingly, right? We got through a whole press conference and nobody asked about the offensive line. I was like, is this happening? Am I going to get to ask about this? And so I asked Hugh Freeze, hey, man, what's going on with this O-line? People are going to be watching this year, especially with what's going on at quarterback. People want to know if the quarterbacks are going to have protection. Tell us what's going on. He described that group, Zach, as a group that you can count on to bring it every practice. Every day, the O-line is bringing the funk, the heat, the juice, whatever gets you going, they're bringing it in the O-line room, according to Hugh Freeze. Now,
he's bringing the Johnson, if you will.
Yeah.
Tate's bringing the Johnson.
Yeah, man, they're bringing the hit sticks every day in that position group. Now, then he went on to name a few guys, but at the end of his whole thing, his diatribe about the offensive line, he brought up Tate Johnson, and he talked about him as a guy who really is embracing what they're trying to do. He emulates that every day. And he is a guy who takes pride in the A and the U on his chest, man. I don't know if you could get a more ringing endorsement from a coach. And he, when I asked him to elaborate, hey, would you say he's a standout? And I think that he said what he was supposed to say, because you're not going to say some guy's ahead of any other guy right now. But the fact that he mentions his name in this way tells me that Hugh Freeze thinks he has the intangibles that he needs, maybe mentally and from a leadership standpoint, to be a guy that you want on the field, being a general on that offensive line. So, Tate Johnson, man, it's proof. Spring matters. You can make moves in the spring. Spring matters. And people think, even though Hugh Freeze kind of said, well, we're not narrowing anything down in the spring.
Stop it.
Cap, Hugh. Cap. Listen.
Especially when you've got a handful of guys that have to transfer out for scholarship purposes. Get out of here.
Yeah, you're narrowing it down. You're just not telling us. And I like that you're wearing that because it's Cap. It's all Cap, what he's talking about.
He's been so strategic, too, with his messaging, specifically like with quarterbacks about the whole growing up thing. And, I'm going to ask more. He doesn't say stuff just to say stuff right now. Like, it's all intentional. There's all messaging behind it.
He's sending messages to guys. I think he sent a clear message to that quarterback room multiple times in the media about what he expects out of his SEC quarterback. But now he's sending positive messages. I mean, think about what he said. He said, listen, no parking tickets, nobody was late coming back from spring break. We didn't have any of that. That's what he said at the press conference. And I'm thinking, okay, great. So now we're moving on from these off the field things, and we're focusing on football. And I think that's where any head coach wants to be, for practices in the spring practice.
I'm with you. Other offensive linemen that have stood out to me, Avery Jones continues to just blow me away. I mean, just so physically impressive. And whenever he takes a step forward, his feet are so wide. You're just not going to move him back, which is something that we haven't really been able to say in a minute at the center position, which is great. And then I love the tackle situation with Wade and Britton. And I thought we'd see them switch more, and it doesn't sound like they are. It sounds like they're all Gunner's always at right tackle, and Dillon's always at left tackle. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Dillon Wade is going to be a star on this offensive line. Now, I'll tell you, we had Cole Kublik come on the show and break down why Wade was going to be a star. He's looked at it. I trust his evaluations on this, but then when I got a chance to see in person for myself, everything that he showed us and kind of revealed to us was confirmed. Dillon Wade is going to be a really, really good offensive lineman at Auburn University. So he's got a chance to I think he has a chance, Zach, to be a top 2-round draft pick. Dillon Wade can. Yeah, Dillon Wade can. So to your point earlier about the offensive line and them being at least passing the eye test, a big part of that is Dillon Wade, right? And then you see like the young kid, Gunner Britton, and there's a lot of potential on this offensive line. And then you get some leadership and some guys who have been there, Tate Johnson. Man, if they can put it together, Hugh Freeze is going to have a hell of a lot of fun in year one.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. All right, there's a defensive player that is starting to solidify himself as, I think, a starter. Mike G, get your thoughts on that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. I got stopped twice at the Auburn baseball game this weekend. People stop me. They say, Zach, I recognized your hat. And I'm like, there's a lot of people wearing this hat. Like, not a lot, but I saw several people wearing this hat. And I'm like, well, you know where I got it from? And they're like, yes, but I just need you to say it. I just need you to say it. I'm like, I got it from Alumni Hall. And if they're like, well, I'm in Atlanta. One of the folks said, I'm in it. It was a nice gentleman and his daughter. Like, we came in town for the day. We're from Atlanta. And I'm like, you know what? You go to alumnihall.com. There's no excuses. We all need solid, legitimate, officially licensed Auburn gear. And you can get it at Alumni Hall if you're in the Auburn, Opelika, or Huntsville communities, or alumnihall.com. Strongly recommend it. They've got the best Auburn stuff out there. Thank you so much for Alumni Hall to partnering with Locked On Auburn. Mike G of the War Rapport, DeMario Tolan, consistently the starting linebacker for what we've seen. Sounds like in the first week, they rotated linebacker a ton based on people that I talked to that were there throughout spring, the entirety of practice. You didn't see that as much earlier this week. It was pretty much DeMario Tolan at linebacker.
Yeah, DeMario Tolan is a guy that you and I have talked about a few times.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when he decided to transfer, LSU fans were in shambles.
Yeah, they were upset, which is always a good sign. Always a good sign.
Yeah, when they're like, we don't want him anyway. It's one thing. But this was a kid that they really had high hopes for. And DeMario Tolan has come in and he's bared that out. Now I'm hearing great things about work ethic. One of the hardest working guys on the team in the weight room.
Love it.
And you know how I feel about the weight room.
You're a big fan.
Yeah, big fan of guys who just take the weight seriously. And he's a guy who's super talented, but it's not resting just on his talent to get him by. He's come in and he's put in the work, and like he's fifth string trying to make it the first string, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way he's working right now. I think you're seeing the coaches are recognizing that, which is why you're seeing him on the field so much. I'm
with you, man. I'm with you. And it sounds like Jeffrey Mba continues to impress. Mm-hmm. Jason Jones continues to be solid.
Yep.
Marcus Harris, I hear good things about them. And it sounds like Elijah McAllister and Keldrick Falk are getting a lot of the reps at Jack, which I think all that was predictable. So, but I think that's going to be your starting front. And then DeMario Tolan. And then I go back and forth on, I don't think they figured out that second linebacker spot yet. So
yeah, I mean, well, look, we already know how much talent is in the secondary of this team, but they can figure out linebacker and that front, like we're talking about. Zach, you're talking about a defense that has the potential to be a top 3 defense in the SEC this year with the guys that they have. I know that's a stretch, but I'm telling you, they can figure out linebacker.
Let me ask you this: top 3 as far as just like overall defense. Product, or top 3 in like stats?
Total defense.
No way.
Total defense. This can be a top 3 defense. Total defense.
The schedule's too hard. Defense. No, the schedule's too hard.
Yeah, man, I get it, man. But it's hard for everybody. I'm telling you, as close as this team was in a bad year last year, and with any improvement on offense where they are improving time of possession for the time that the defense is spending on the field, I think they've got a shot. So this is more a comment about the whole team, and where
sure.
I feel like the whole team is going to be. So, but there's a causality to offense and defense, right? Especially on offense when you're holding the ball and you're not putting your defense in bad positions. But I just think they have I think they have the talent to be a top 3 defense. I guess maybe is a better way to say it. I think they have the talent to be a top 3 defense, but we got to see what's going to happen at linebacker. So that's why DeMario Tolan is such a big part of that equation.
Yeah, I think the defensive backfield has the talent to be a top 3 defensive backfield. I don't think they're a top 3 defensive line yet. I think that you would need 3 or 4 guys to really take a big step forward. I'm not saying that's not possible. Like Jeffrey Mba's got all the upside in the world. Marcus Harris could take a step forward. Sounds like Jason Jones is totally killing it. Sounds like he's a different player, which is all great.
But I think that you could have a top 3 defense without a top 3 defensive line. So hear me out, right?
But you need a dude. And like, I don't know if you have a dude outside the defensive backfield right now.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. You don't have a dude until you have a dude, though. Right?
That's true. Like, it could be Marcus Harris. Right. It could be DeMario Tolan. It could be Jeffrey Mba. Like, I think those are all positions that a dude could emerge. It could be Keldrick Falk. Like, it totally could be.
Right.
But I'm just not I'm not sold on that happening yet. And I think Auburn can win games without them being a top 3 defense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, there are 2 kinds of dudes. There are dudes that were born dudes like you. You just woke up and you were like, I was born this way, right?
No.
A dude, right?
No. I am no dude.
And then there are dudes who make themselves dudes through hard work and perseverance and, through a lot of things that, Again, I just feel like I've seen guys through the time where I used to film for Auburn. I've seen guys who were not dudes coming out of high school, and they made themselves into dudes through hard work. They made themselves into draft picks through hard work, and I see that on that team. So again, I'm projecting a little bit, and I understand where you're at when you're saying, "Hey, I'm not sure."
Isn't that a little different now? Because I don't think you're going to see as many dudes come here that aren't dudes, to use your analogy. Mm-hmm. And then slowly turn into dudes, because you don't play when you're not a dude. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to transfer.
Right.
And I just don't think you're going to see that.
Oh, we'll see. I think you're wrong.
About what specifically? What am I wrong about?
Well, I just think about the overall potential of this defense, right? I think that you know,
I'm buying the potential. I just don't think they're going to be a top 3 defense.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll see. But again, those dudes on the defensive line and in the linebacker room, I don't know. I just think they have the potential there to step up and surprise some people. And
I'm concerned about pass rush. And I'm hoping fair. Ron Roberts' scheme helps the pass rush out.
For sure, but and that will hurt. Lack of pass rush, I'm telling you, will hurt the defensive backs no matter how good they are as well too. Right? I mean, because you can't get pressure and you leave your DBs on an island, it's going to hurt. I'm not expecting that.
We've seen this at Auburn for forever. We're like the best 2 players on our team are like pass rushing guys. I mean, I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about it all the way back to like Carl Lawson.
Right.
And it's like,
I just get a lot of pressure.
And it's just like, I feel like we should be getting more pressure than I've always felt that way. So you know, maybe the irony of it is, and like all just in Auburn fashion, like the year where we don't have that, maybe the pass rush takes a step forward.
Right. We'll see. We'll see.
Mike G, how can people find you, hear you, love you, watch you, subscribe to you?
YouTube, type the War Rapport, subscribe, become a patron. That's it, guys. We're on War Rapport on every social media platform. Check us out everywhere.
Yep, the War Rapport. Happy War Rapport Wednesday to everyone. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com. And we'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.